Let's talk spring football, Badger fans. We got Justin here. We're going to talk, is there a quarterback battle, and is that a good thing? Locked on Badgers, let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Badger fans? We got Justin here. We pulled him out of basketball detox to talk football, so we're good on this front.
I was in rehab.
He's in a rehab center somewhere, and every TV screen was just Badger football highlights. It was Nick Doon, it was David Gilreath, right? So we got Justin here. Thank you for joining the show. As always, Locked On Badgers is your first listen every day. Really do appreciate it. Justin, I want to start here. We're going to get right into it. Spring football, there's been a couple practices, 3 practices. You and I talked before we had Rajiv. We talked that we're all pretty dismissive of a quarterback battle. And I'm not saying there is one, but I'm now not saying there fully isn't one. What are your thoughts on what you've heard about the quarterbacks? Is there a potential for a battle here?
My personal thoughts on this is it's way too early in the actual spring camp to actually get any feel for it. Number one, you have a new quarterback in Van Dyke who's never gone through implementation, so really doesn't fully understand what they're asking him to do. And now he's finally getting the hands-on approach with coaches, and it's old hat right now to Locke. Like, he did it all last year. He's comfortable with what they're asking him to do. He's going to look better for right now. That said, I think that there is if we look at this in a week and we're at practice 6 or 7 and it still doesn't look like he's getting a grasp of it and Locke is looking like he's playing well, yeah, I think you need to start to look at it and get a little concerned. Like, at some point you need Van Dyke to start showing that he's the dude. The bigger issue here is it sounds like there was some question. He's not taking the bull by the horns with the leadership role of this, and that's an issue. Your quarterback has to be a leader, either by example or you have to be outspoken. And to me personally, I think they need to be both. You need the person that will be outspoken, but will also be the one that goes out there and shows out.
And that's one thing. Mordecai last year came on the campus and was immediately the dude. Russell Wilson, when he transferred in, was voted a captain right away. Like, literally, he was the dude. You got to be a leader as a quarterback. You don't have to be the best player. You don't have to be an NFL guy. You have to be a leader. Period.
People have to respect you.
There's almost no get around with that if you're not that guy on the team. And to your point, Luke Fickell said something interesting. I think Luke Fickell and Phil Longo basically said they need, and I don't have the exact quote for him, but they need him to come out of his shell a little bit.
Yeah.
And listen, I am absolutely not going to make too much out of that 3 practices in, but that is an interesting comment about an upperclassman transfer quarterback coming in. We need him to come out of his shell a little bit. That's like something you'd say about a transfer linebacker or a DeFi, or like, it's an interesting comment, as I'll say. The other thing, it's possible Locke took some steps, right? I know he got bigger. I know he got stronger. And I know that because we've talked to the Squat Fest maestro himself, like Brady Collins. Like, he's gotten stronger. He already had a pretty good grasp of the playbook. There is a scenario where Tyler Van Dyke is okay. He comes in, he kind of is what we expect, but maybe Braedyn Locke took a bigger jump than we expected. Yeah. And in that case, that's not a bad thing either.
Yeah, that's interesting. If you compare their redshirt freshman years statistically, there's a pretty big gap there in terms of like talent level. Locke does need to take some big steps. Like, some of the things are just mentally, he needs to understand situations. Like the batted balls last year, part of that is in part because your decision-making and where you're going with those balls, you need to understand the throws you can make. And if you have somebody bearing down on you, perhaps you have to adjust and find a way to work around that, because you can't have 5 batted balls in a game. That is absolutely going to crush you, especially when you think about it. A lot of the passes that you throw are 3rd down situations. Those are 5 potential drives that you're losing. So that's a big area where he needs to adjust. I think the awareness, like understanding what needs to be done on the field, I think he was pretty good last year. He needs to be better from an accuracy standpoint. I never really saw too many situations where I was like, that's not enough arm. But I do think that he could use more zip on the ball. We'll see if that is something that maybe came around a little bit with the additional strength. But there are limitations with him. Like, I do think that if Locke is in there, I think our ceiling comes down a bit. Like, if you get the best of what Van Dyke's skill set is, it's just higher. Like if he somehow clicks and turns into freshman Van Dyke or redshirt freshman Van Dyke again, you're looking at potentially a 10-win team. If you get the best of Locke, I think you're looking at an 8 or a 9-win team at best.
You might be chasing. You might be. I lost the phrase I was trying to think of though. When there's a lot of quarterbacks that you spend most of your college career as a fan waiting for the best of them, though.
Yeah.
Right. Like there is a reason.
Yep.
Like there's no doubt Van Dyke has a better tool set physically.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
But there's a reason he's still in college and hasn't got a
Oh, for sure. 2 years ago, they were talking about him as a potential first-round pick.
Yeah. And now it's like, gee, I hope he can beat out a redshirt freshman who struggled last year.
Yeah.
You know, so
he is a redshirt sophomore now.
Sorry. But yeah, like he beat out, like there's an element of we need you to be a little bit better. And consistently he hasn't done that over the course of his career. And that's just the numbers that, the back of his baseball card, as they'd say in baseball, tells you that. The back of his football card tells you he hasn't been able to find that consistency. And if that trend continues, I want to ask you this, because I have a theory on this. Let's say they are close this year. So through spring practice into fall ball, they are pretty neck and neck on the quarterback race. Who do you think starts if they're close? Because I think it'd be Locke. I think they would go with the younger guy whose younger brother is in the pipeline below them if they're close.
I think a lot depends on why they're close. Because I think they're going to go with the person who gives them the best opportunity to succeed. Like if Locke is making better decisions, but Van Dyke maybe is making some bigger plays, you're probably going to go with the guy who you can trust a little bit more in the game. And I think that's probably a good comparison there. Locke is going to be the guy who's probably a little more ho-hum. Van Dyke gives you that upside where if he makes the plays, the physical tools are there for him to make some big plays.
So do you think youth would play into it? If they said, hey, if they are close, and let's wait you're right. The context of it depends. Absolutely. But let's say the coaching staff looks at this and says, I think either of them gives us about the same chance to win, roughly, give or take a few percentage points here or there. Let's go with the guy that we're going to have in the stable for several years.
Possibly. I think you need to look at it from the standpoint of Locke's not going anywhere, most likely. So you're better off probably starting Van Dyke, and if he's ineffective, then just switching to Locke. But at least then you're not going to have Van Dyke leave post-spring.
Would it hurt you, though, if he doesn't beat out Locke if he leaves? I mean, if he doesn't clearly beat out Locke.
If you look at the QB room, the worst-case scenario, you're starting Locke. But if you do it the other way, you're losing Van Dyke for sure.
Yeah.
If he's not starting, he's gone. So your QB room gets thinner.
That's a fair point. Yeah, that's a fair point. What does it do for the younger players if Locke wins? So that's the other interesting part of this. And by the way, I want to be clear. I actually think Van Dyke's going to be the starter. I still think this is a little more
I do too.
Actual battle. But let's just hypothetically say Locke wins the battle. It feels like if Van Dyke wins, Evers still has a window to maybe compete, right? Because Van Dyke will be gone the next year. If Locke wins, it feels like LaCrue, Evers, it probably puts them on burn notice.
I think there's a freight train that came in as a 6'6"
or there's that guy
freshman quarterback who's getting a lot of reps right now, that the staff is making a point of trying to get him as seasoned as they possibly can, that everybody needs to watch out for. Because I honestly think from a skill set standpoint, he's as close to Van Dyke as they probably have on the roster. Huge arm, pretty good accuracy. If mentally he can get it to click, he may not have the speed that Evers has, but he's definitely got a body that can absorb more punishment. And I think everybody needs to be on notice that I think if they can get him ready, I think the goal is to realistically, Mabrey's going to be starting at some point during his redshirt freshman year. It may not be initially, but I think that's the goal.
Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be hard. I think it's going to be hard to keep him off the field if it clicks for him. He just has a unique physical skill set.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Evers. So Evers is a guy, it sounds like the feet have quieted down a little bit from people who've seen practice. It sounds like the game has slowed down a little bit. You and I have talked about the skill set. I mean, 6'4", 200 pounds, and he runs a 4.55. Like, that's ridiculous. It sounds like it's starting to click a little bit. And hopefully it's not too late, right, with Evers. That's the question.
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to the self-awareness of coaches. Like, you need to understand, like, if coaches are being unbiased and just looking at it strictly from who gives us the best opportunity, that's how I want them looking at it that way. I do not want you going into this saying, I'm basing this off of I'm irritated with how he started last season. If the player's shown growth in that capacity, you need to get over that and you need to give them opportunity. Mm-hmm. Like if he's doing everything he can to prove himself to you, take that as he's maturing, he's becoming a better player, and hopefully he becomes somebody that, because let's be honest, if it clicks for him, you're talking about Wisconsin having an absolute freak show at quarterback. Yeah. Because he will give them the opportunity to create things that nobody else on the roster can. And he has an opportunity. It's an X factor. You have a quarterback like that, you can beat everyone that you play this year simply because of the fact that you can't account for him in ways that you can the other guys. If things break down, everyone's covered downfield, and you have a guy that can run like that, he can break the pocket and make a play, get a 20-yard run that you're just throwing up your hands on defense. Like, what do I do with this?
Yep. He will do to other teams what Justin Fields would always do to us, what Braxton Miller would do to us.
Our defense was amazing, but we just can only hold him down for so long.
And on 3rd and 7, that dude would break a 9-yard run, and you'd want to punch your TV, you know, and it's like, but he could do that. This is something Eiler said on the Discord, but I think he said it really well. I just want a meritocracy. Like, I literally don't care. I have no favorite in this race.
That's exactly how I feel.
Whoever's the best quarterback, that dude wins the job, period, point. I don't care at all.
Yeah. I handicap it based off of what I think the physical tools are, because I have not seen enough of any of these guys in practice to know who actually is standing out from a mental standpoint.
Mm-hmm. May the best one win. And that's why you bring in a bunch of different bodies who have high upside, right? Yeah. That's the beauty of having multiple quarterbacks in the room that you can kind of get excited about. One of them should be able to win it. We got to take a quick break. I want to come back. We're going to kick over to Justin and get kind of initial thoughts outside of the quarterback room on offense. Who's standing out to him? I might pick him on Trech, see if he's got any Trech takes. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at Robinhood Retirement. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started on Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees do apply. And now there is some legal information. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of your first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. 3% match on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA is available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. All right, let's get back into this. Let's talk some offense, Justin. Give me some offensive takes that have stood out to you, or some thoughts.
Well, I mean, we're getting the annual CJ Williams is lighting it up in practice. I will say this. I want nothing more than that guy to be a dude. I have cards with CJ Williams on them that I'm looking forward to it if he somehow clicks this year. I would love to see it. Haven't heard much about Burrows. Haven't heard much about Green, to be quite honest, so far. Vinny Anthony's showing some things here and there, it sounds like. And then the slot guys are the guys who are standing out. And here's my low-key take I want to throw out there. I think there's a chance, depending on usage, it's possible that Trech could potentially have a season that is even better than Pauling. And I say this because if they find ways to get them on the field enough, I think that Pauling's going to draw a lot of attention. And I don't think a lot of people know enough about Trech yet, and they probably should. But he's going to be a problem. You get him one-on-one with a linebacker, and he's going to abuse the heck out of them. Yeah. He's probably shiftier than Pauling. Pauling probably has a little more top-end speed. But I think if I'm talking within 10 yards, who am I throwing to on a route? It's probably Trech. Because I think he can create separation on anybody within that 10 yards.
He's a little bigger than Pauling, too. A couple inches taller. I love him. I mean, you and I have been talking about Trech since before he committed, right, on his visit to Wisconsin. After he committed, after he decommitted.
So what was it? The video? I was jumping out of my chair when I saw the video of him at the camp. They showed him just chew up a kid that was trying to cover him.
Yeah, that kid gave up football. He's like, this is
he should.
I can't wait to see him this year. We saw flashes in the LSU game, right? Him catching the ball after they catch, he's going to be hard. Like he's going to be a nightmare after the catch. And,
we saw that even when he was playing in like the what is the Polynesian Bowl?
Mm-hmm.
Like he just kind of dances out there like he just seems so like loose when he's playing on the field. Like you have those guys that you've played with when you remember being back in like 6th grade, the super fast kid that like could just outrun everybody. And you're like, I hate this kid because as soon as he gets to the edge, you're just done.
Yeah.
And that's what Trech feels like. Like you get him in a short area of space. He's the quickest guy on the field. Like I would venture to guess that his 10-yard splits are probably off the charts. And he's strong enough as a little dude, as long as you don't get length on him, to separate from anybody. If he gets the footwork down, he might be able to put him on the outside even a little bit.
Well, here's the other thing, right? Most teams struggle with finding a quality slot corner. It's hard. It's the hard because there's a two-way go. Like it's so difficult to find good slot corners. And now if you have a slot on one side that's Trech, maybe you have another one on the other side that's Pauling. Maybe you put them on the same side. You can stack. You can do a lot with these two.
Oh, yeah.
But
I was going to say, you imagine going trips with those two stacked?
Well, you just don't have two good slot corners. Most teams don't have one good slot corner. How are you going to match up with those guys in space?
We were talking about this before we came on. I said, can you imagine stacking the 3 in trips and putting them out there, having one go one way and one go the other? You're going to have corners head spinning trying to stay with those two guys. They're way too quick in short area to deal with that.
You know, the other thing too is CJ, mentioning you brought up CJ. It's possible. This is still a really talented, big physical dude. And we were probably just a year early. And
that's possible. We talked about it last year. I even said, I'm like, most receivers don't hit until junior year. Like the freak shows come out and are there earlier, but most of them don't hit until that point. Then they have their year where it's their breakout year. They get 600-700 yards. And then the senior year is the year where they explode and end up having like 1,000 yards receiving. Pauling was early. He was a redshirt freshman this last year?
He was a sophomore, wasn't he?
Or redshirt sophomore, I thought.
Yeah.
So
that's about the 3rd year in. That about checks. Let me go to another offensive spot, and then we'll finish up on the offense with if you have anything else. I want to go to offensive line, which to me is interesting for a couple reasons. It's really great for me to see Renfro out there, seemingly healthy. I think it's like we talked about last year. He is the key to the offensive line, in my opinion. However, the depth on that unit needs to be rebuilt. And I know we got freshmen coming in.
Oh, yeah.
In the 2 deep. I don't think we have a back.
Scary.
Like,
it's hard for me to say at this point. Blazek's got his work cut out for him. He's got to get some of these guys ready that have been percolating kind of in the system for a while. You've got to have guys you got to have a couple swing guys that you can trust. You're going to have at least 7 guys. Somebody that can play either guard or tackle, and then somebody ideally that can play guard and center.
And I don't think we have 7 right now.
No, I don't think we do either. I think you're going to have to get to it. Sounds like Haywood is actually playing pretty well for a true freshman at tackle, though, which that could be telling. You could be talking about a guy who's taking over that spot right away next year.
He's on track to be a starter next year, I think.
I think so.
Starter his redshirt sophomore year and then off to the NFL. Like that's his track, I think. Any other last kind of offensive thoughts at running back, tight end, anything else on offense that's sticking out to you?
Running back, I think the guys have been solid so far, it sounds like. I just don't know. I don't want to dive into that because I think we know nothing until those other 2 guys get in there because they are definitely being thought of as factors. And I think there's a chance that those guys push. Like Jones is a guy who I could see legitimately pushing for 15 carries somehow. Like he's that type of gifted runner.
Not a game, right?
I think there's a chance that if he hits the ground running in fall camp, he's got a lot of work to do. Don't get me wrong. I think it's going to be that could stack against him, but I think physically he's going to be ready, and I think he's going to be the most gifted guy that could take big carries at this point. Like you're looking at him versus Malusi. I think that there's a chance that as the season goes on, he takes on more of a role.
I would disagree there. No, there's definitely a chance Malusi gets hurt. We've seen that, in which case Dylan could jump. I love Dylan.
So
I don't think he's stealing reps from Ches Malusi if Malusi's healthy, though.
Here's the deal, the way I look at that. We've seen Malusi now for, 3 years?
Yeah, 3 years.
I don't think he's ever averaged over 5 yards a carry.
He was over 5 last year before he got hurt, right? Yeah, he was.
I mean, his average was dropping as the season went on. I think he's right around 5.
I thought Malusi looked really good last year.
But in a Wisconsin offense, I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying, like, I think we look at him sometimes through the lens of him being solid because we were struggling.
Last year, 6 yards per carry. 6 yards per carry.
He was that high? Okay. I know he was kind of hot to start the year, and he kind of faded as the season was going on. He has to be around that number because I think in a Wisconsin offense, you need to be able to do that. And that tracks with what North Carolina was even doing. So the expectation to me, if you're a good runner in this offense, you should be around 6 yards a carry. If you're down at 5, I think you can be passed. And if he ends up being around 5 again this next year, I think that Jones is a guy who's capable of being at 6. And you know how I feel about what's his name?
Dupree. You know how I feel about what.
I have too many names floating through my head right now. How I feel about Dupree.
The funny sentence.
I think that guy, he's not going to get a ton of carries, but I think that he's going to be electric in whatever way they choose to use him. Just because I think, number one, he's probably the best at receiving that we've had at running back since what? James White?
The
catch that he has on his high school film is just insane.
Yeah, these are high schoolers, though. Dari was really good. Was Dari before or after White?
This has nothing to do with who else is on the field around him. This is the catch where it flew back over his shoulder the other way.
Highlight films is my point.
I know, but that's a catch that I don't think that we've had another Badger back that I could think of.
I love
makes that play.
I don't think I'm more bullish on Chess is what I think it is. I think Tyree Walker is going to have a big role. So I think with those two, the freshmen are going to have a hard time. Would be my guess.
I just think that they're going to be looking for somebody to provide some explosiveness, and I'm not sure the other two guys do. Ches has never been a guy to reel off 50-yard runs. Tyree Walker definitely is, and he's more of a bowling ball. So I think they're going to look for some explosiveness, and so there's going to be guys that are going to get opportunities because of the fact they want somebody who can actually potentially take it to the house if they get a seam. I think both those two can.
I would be more bullish, too, if they were enrolled early.
That 100% is going to affect things. If they were in there, if they were working right now, they'd be getting a ton of reps because Malusi's not full go. Mm-hmm. And Walker's probably getting a bunch, but I think they look at Walker as more of like a depth piece than as a guy they want to lean on to get 700 or 800 yards this year.
I think Walker's their battering ram. Third and goal, second.
I think ideally, if you're using him correctly, I think you're probably looking at 300 or 400 yards.
Yeah, I'm interested though. I had an Oklahoma guy who covers Oklahoma for Locked On Sooners. Really raved about him. Said you're going to like him a lot. Fan favorite in Norman. I'm interested. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Come back with defense. Let's talk linebackers. That might be the most exciting part of this.
Yes,
entire show.
We have athleticism.
We got athleticism stacked on athleticism. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. If you want to get tickets, maybe for a certain podcast host, whether that's Bucky Report, whether that's Locked On, if you want to do somebody a solid, go to Game Time. You can get the cheapest tickets. The prices a lot of times get cheaper as it goes on, so you don't really have to plan ahead, which I'm not very good at, Justin, as you've probably experienced at times.
I can agree with that.
Like 5 minutes before a show, hey Justin, you want to jump on? Well, I'm kind of busy. All right, too late. Hang up.
Or the Ohio State game last year when I think I had to ping you about 8 times.
Yeah.
Ryan, are you in?
I don't know, right? I don't know. But if I had Game Time, I could have made the ticket buying experience even easier and simpler. Game Time, you get flash deals. You know exactly what the seats are going to look like. There's pictures of it, huge inventory, not just sports, any type of entertainment event. Download the Game Time app today. Create your account. Use code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Sorry. Download the Game Time app. Create the account. Use code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. All right, Justin, let's talk defense. Let's talk linebackers. Let's talk outside linebackers. Let's talk all linebackers.
Let's talk who started with the number ones today.
Let's talk. Let's go.
John Pius and Leon Lowery.
I love Lowery. I've been in love with
it. You are undervaluing Pius. I'm telling you right now, my man.
I haven't undervalued him. I don't dislike him.
When I heard that he came in and they measured him at 6'4", I'm like, okay, this changes things. I thought he was 6'2".
About Pius. I love so Lowery has been my guy who I thought would.
Oh yeah, we both liked his film when we watched him, but athletically they're both a huge upgrade over what we had.
how fun is it to read the practice reports? And again, it's not completely fair. Let's be super clear here. Like pads aren't on, and that's going to help an offensive lineman more than a defensive lineman. Let's be super clear, our linebacker. But it sounds like they are giving Malman and Nelson fits upon fits upon fits. And for a team last year that struggled desperately generating easy pass rush, that's music to the ears, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, these two are both explosive. It sounds like they're hurting the run game too. Like when I hear that, I'm love hearing that they're causing havoc in that, because we weren't great low key at causing negative plays in the run game either last year. In fact, our run defense was the worst it's probably been in a decade. It's been a long time since we were that bad.
So how do you think this plays out? Because Tackett's been limited, right? When Tackett gets back in, you add him into the mix. In the inside right now, it's been Allegro, it's been Chaney with Jaheim Thomas mixing in. Really good reports on Chaney, by the way. Sounds like he got faster, leaner. I'm excited about Chaney. I've always been a Chaney guy. Like I think he was a little underrated from last year. That's just my personal take. How do you think this shakes out when Tack gets back and maybe Jaheim potentially moves outside or stays inside in that battle? I've heard. I think
he's going to be used as a wild card. It seems like he's going to be situational. Probably starts on the inside and then gets moved to the outside, potentially in certain pass rush packages and stuff like that. I don't know. This is very difficult because I think if we're talking about athletic pedigree, it's 100% Tackett.
Yeah.
If we're looking at it from the standpoint of who maybe has the trust of the staff, it's probably Chaney right now. But Tackett's going to be in there. Like I still get stuck on some of the things that I saw last year with Chaney, where from an angle standpoint and some of the things he got burned. And if he can correct those things, he has some upside. I think Tackett is a heat-sinking missile that I want to see unleashed in this defense. And if we're talking pass rushing from that spot, he's 100% the guy I want out there, because I think that he is just downhill. When you let him go and just fly, he is crazy to watch. Like he comes and brings the thumper.
Yeah, Chaney, I think, I have heard this literally, that he's gotten bigger, faster, stronger, which is great. He can get bigger, faster, stronger, and he's not going to be in Tackett's athleticism queue. Like
Tackett's this is the guy we've heard as hitting 21 miles an hour on the.
Yeah, it's a different. It's like you can make your car a little bigger, faster, stronger. It's probably not a McLaren, no matter what you do to it. It's interesting to me because I was in my head thinking about this. How many linebackers are you really excited about right now on the roster? Right? Because you have Allegro, who I'm super excited to see Allegro in year 2. Are you kidding me? And then you have Tack.
That's the thing. He's the wild card, because Allegro, we're talking about this inside linebacker group, and he has a chance. Like he's as athletic as the other guys. And then you have Cheeks. Cheeks is another guy who is like a freak athlete.
Yep.
Like that room is so loaded with athletic. Think of where we were last year at this time, and think of what we have right now in terms of athleticism in that room.
It's night and day.
Oh yeah, it's not even close. Like I would venture to guess right now, if we put 40 times on these guys, I would bet there's probably no less than 4 guys that are running 4.6.
I think that's probably accurate. I think Tack would.
I think Thomas probably would. I think Chaney probably is close to that. I think that Cheeks would. I think Allegro would.
Maybe. Allegro would. Allegro is more of like a safety linebacker hybrid guy. I bet you he would.
He might be in fringe 4-5 guy.
Yeah. No, it's super athletic, man. And again, to my point earlier, I go like 7 deep with guys I'm excited about. Like I'm excited about this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. Like that's a great spot to be in, because there's other spots, Justin, like the defensive line. I'm not getting 7 deep. Give me something. It does
sound like, I did hear today's report. They did make it sound like the defensive line was looking deeper than last year. And if that's the case, then somebody's been doing some work in the kitchen, because man, last year was not easy to watch. Maybe it's just another year in the scheme and guys are more sound, but man, it was tough last year watching the defensive line. That's the weakest I can remember a Badger defensive line. And it's not like we've been loaded with talent at that position in the past, but they were always sound. Last year we weren't sound.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was a talent issue or if that was a mental issue with guys just making a lot of mental errors.
I think both. I think it was more of a talent issue, though. I think it was more of a talent and a depth issue. Like if you're not super talented and your guys get worn down, like you just kind of get pushed around.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll wrap it there. I mean, unless any last take that you have on.
Well, apparently Curtis Neal's looked really good.
That's a huge one. If he can take a step up, because he can be a disruptive interior defensive lineman if he can take another step up.
Yeah. The question with him is going to be weight. He's going to have to get close to 300 if he's going to play nose. Like you can't really have a guy that's going to be that light. I don't know if he can hold the point. It will be really interesting to see what ends up happening with that room. I haven't heard much on Bowlers. I would love to hear that he is kind of making some strides as like a 5-tech, so we can play more 3-3-5. Because right now it sounds like it's still a little bit more in the 2-4. So we'll see what ends up happening going forward. We're so early in camp. Who knows, what's going to happen with this. But it's when you start to hear that the outside linebackers are causing havoc, that's a big deal. Because with the type of athletes that are in the middle, if you can get guys spreading to try and cover those guys on the edge, there's going to be gaps for those middle guys to come up. And they move way too fast to put them one-on-one with an interior offensive lineman.
Yeah, it's going to create a lot more problems. A lot of things that this defense literally struggled with last year. The speed on the edges is going to help shut that down.
Yeah. If the outside linebackers can play, if like their pluses in this defense, the defensive line will get a bump in its own right simply because of the fact that the offensive line is under pressure and under stress by those two guys. So
unless they can just run
plays
it
up
right
the talent level of the interior.
Unless they can just run it right down our throats. That
100% is the issue. You have to be able to stop the run game.
Which we'll see. That Jamel Howard, we're going to talk about Jamel Howard in another show probably, but he's going to be a big part of that if we're able to do it. Justin over at the Bucky Report, make sure you guys go give them a follow, though I think a lot of people on the show do, but if you don't, go do that. Him and Rasheed. This is the Locked On Badgers. Really appreciate everybody tuning in. As always, much more football coming up, obviously. On Wisconsin, we'll talk later.